is the salary range one can expect after completion of his MBA?
So I can't speak for MBAs in other countries because I didn't go to those. I can speak to the ones in the US. Typically, when you get out of an MBA, to a certain extent, it depends on the school you get out of and what company you go into. But different sectors tend to have different ranges. And so, for example, if you go into consulting like I did, it can be anything between $150,000 to about $200,000 a year, sometimes even more than that with bonuses and things like that. With pharma, you're looking at between $130,000 to up to $180,000. Banking can be 200,000 to 250,000. So it's a lot of money for sure. It sets you up really, really well. I mean, obviously you have loans to pay and things like that because you've done an MBA and put that investment in. But the salaries post an MBA definitely help you take care of a lot of those expenses and a lot of that debt and helps you clear it pretty quickly. I don't know what the ranges are in India, but from what I've been hearing from people, especially if you go into like big consulting firms and things like that, the pay is pretty competitive, especially in consulting and banking. It does set you up well. I go back to what I say. What I'm talking about right now is the bigger firms, bigger pharma companies. You're looking at the top range. There's obviously companies that are going to pay you significantly less than that, but you obviously want to be pushing for the top range. And to do that, you need to be coming from better schools. You need to have work experience before that to compete with everyone else. And so there's this illusion that if I get an MBA, I will walk into one of these big companies, which is absolutely not the case. There is a lot of effort it takes to be able to break into these companies and recruit into it. It depends on your overall profile. Just because you go to a certain school doesn't necessarily mean you'll walk into McKinsey or walk into Pfizer or walk into Novartis. And so, I really encourage people to talk to people either in an MBA or who have finished an MBA, who have gotten MBBS, because there's a whole process involved. There's a whole profile that you need to build for yourself. One, to get into the school, and two, to get out of the school. And so you want to be setting yourself up for success. It's very easy to just say, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to do an MBA. And that tends to be typically what everyone's going to tell you, especially in India. Because in India, the general mindset is, if you don't know what to do, go study some more. But you're going to get out of, an MBA or an MPH or an MS in informatics or whatever other degree you choose to do. And you're not going to be in a good place because you're not going to be very hireable. So that's a mistake that a lot of people make. A basic thing to just to say is, for example, the stuff that I studied in Berkeley. Berkeley is a really good school for sure. But everything that I studied in Berkeley, you can study at Coursera for free. You don't need to be sitting in California to be learning economics or to be learning the basics of finance, corporate finance. You can go on to Coursera and EDX or YouTube and learn all of those things for free. But the reason you go to an MBA is because you want to get that brand on your resume. You want to meet those people who can get you better jobs. You want to be able to get that higher salary. But to do that, you need to set yourself up for success. So don't do an MBA because you don't know what to do. It's worked for some people, don't get me wrong. But I think the better way to think about it is, if you don't know what to do, get a job and work in the area you think you're interested in. I thought I was very, very interested in public health and health policy. And I worked for about a year and a half on a big public health project and realized that is absolutely not for me. And so unless an amazing opportunity came up, I probably wouldn't go back into public health again. So what you think you know about a particular space is not necessarily going to be what your experience is like. And so that's why I encourage people, if you say, I have a lot of people reaching out to me saying digital health is what I'm most interested in, or public health or health policy is what I'm most interested in. If that's what you're interested in, go do a project in that space. Like, reach out to someone on LinkedIn and say, you know what, can I do some work for you for a couple of months? Can I do an internship with you? A lot of the work that I've done in the past has been for free. There have been people that are working in that space, and you don't do everything for free. You obviously want to get paid, but say, try and do like a 4 week project with someone for free. It'll give you a sense of what it's like to work in that space, what it's like to work with those, with certain types of people. And it'll slowly, after a couple of weeks, months, you'll realize whether you like it or you don't like it. But just reading about it is not going to tell you whether you like it or not. Everything sounds sexy and exciting when you read about it, to be honest. Or when you talk to people working in that space. Once you actually work in the space, you realize whether you like it or not. And so take those risks, go out there, work, do as many projects as you can. And that's the best way to try and figure out what you like and what you don't like.
That's a very wonderful insights. The one of the follow-up question I was going to ask about how to decide that how should what come up that this sector is good for him or her. So I think you have answered this part already in this question. So you would like to have your insights on how your day typically looks working as a consultant.
Yeah, sure. So at the level that I am at, a lot of the work that I do is in building materials for clients. And so we typically have partners and directors who are higher up and who lead a lot of the the conversations with the clients at my level, and I'm at like a mid-level. Um, a lot of my work is in building the the deliverables that they're going to use to present to the client. And so whether that's PowerPoint presentations, whether that's Excel and modeling, whether that's doing research for what we want to present to them, it's a lot of hands-on work to make sure we get our point across. So you're going to present a strategy or you're going to present a plan to a client, but there has to be a thought process behind it, right? And so simply let's use a drug launch, for example. I want to launch a new drug in the neurology space. Let's say a dementia, like Alzheimer's drug, right? Alzheimer's has become a hot topic now. If a company comes to us in, say, phase 3, getting ready to launch, they finish their phase 3 and they're getting ready to launch into the market, what is the best way to launch a drug? And so what my research would be was, what is in the pipeline right now? Which are the drugs out there? How many patients are there? How many patients are being treated? How many patients are going to potentially be treated with that particular drug we're talking about? Where are they going to be located? Are they going to be in big cities? Are they going to be in villages? Are they going to be in towns? How do we do it? What is the best approach to talk to physicians? So if we're talking to neurologists or, internal medicine specialists, how do we start the conversation about Alzheimer's? When are they prescribing drugs? So there's a lot of different components that go into these strategies. And so what my job is one, to do a lot of that research to be able to speak to the strategy, and two is to build the materials that will get presented to the client. And so we obviously build that as a team. I don't do that by myself, and that research is split across the team, but a lot of it comes down to the team coming together, and everyone has different expertise about different areas, and we discuss it, deliberate, talk about what we're seeing, what the trends are, and then finally come up with, all right, this is the final plan or strategy we're going to give the client based on all of this research. And that's what eventually gets presented to them to be able to then launch their drug. So a lot of my work tends to be more research and building. Um, Communication also to a large extent, because I do interact with clients quite a bit. But then as you go up the ladder, your work is very, very development focused. And so when you're lowest on the lowest rung, you're only building slides, building Excel sheets, doing research, and then slowly it goes from just building to also communication. And then as you go the furthest up, it's less building and all communication. So how do you take a very complex topic and make it as simple as possible? Because Alzheimer's, to use my example, is a very, very complex area, right? Clinically as well as business-wise, it's extremely complex space. The science keeps changing. So how am I communicating that to my team? How am I communicating that to my client? How am I looking at what's going on in the market? So it's a lot of research, a lot of development in my area, but also a lot of communication. And so that's a quick gist of what I do on a day-to-day basis. A lot of my work, one of the questions I get is how much of it is clinically focused. And the simple answer is there are certain projects that are very clinically heavy, but that's probably less than 2% of the work I've done in the last 9 years. less than 2% of the work I've done has been clinically heavy. And the vast majority of it has been more broader business specific, more industry specific. And so understanding not just clinical specific trends, but figuring out what's going on in the R&D space, figuring out what's going on in the, in the biology space. So you're thinking of like amyloid or like beta amyloid or something like that, which is way deeper than patient care, the science involved in patient care. What's going on in the Alzheimer's drug market, for example. So there's lots of these different components. They're all tied to Alzheimer's, but the bit of treating a patient is a very, very small bit. And there's a much larger industry element that much larger industry ecosystem that you need to be able to explore and understand. And honestly, I'm a curious person by nature, and so I love it. And so not knowing it feels amazing to me, because that means I have so much more to learn about it, and I'll go crazy online on Google Scholar and on PubMed and Medscape and all of these websites. And the other one is ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT has just been one of the most unbelievable tools I have ever used, especially in consulting. It's so easy to try and synthesize very, very complex topics and give you a starting point to do research. But yeah, that's my day to day in that's my day to day in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, sir, for walking us through your day. One last question that I would like to ask you: what is the advice or tip you want to give to the hustlers who are looking to transition their career?
I think I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. One is, put your ego aside. I think that's the most important one. It's getting into MBBS and clearing an MBBS is very hard. So you're already in an elite bracket academically, but don't let that get to your head. There's a much, much broader ecosystem out there. There are some incredibly smart people in healthcare. And so your degree doesn't necessarily make you the smartest person in the room. Honestly speaking, if you're the smartest person in the room, and I can't remember who said this, but there's a quote that says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so be open to learning as much as you can. And that's absolutely number one. Number two is, be okay with taking risks, especially in the beginning. You're going to have a lot of people pushing back on your career choice to switch out. They're going to try and say, take the easier path, take the stable path, which is continue being a doctor. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. All of my close friends from MBBS are still doctors. 95 to 99% of them are still doctors. I'm one of the few who has switched out, and they're very happy in their jobs. They love what they do, and it's not a bad thing for sure. So if you do decide to switch out, you're going to have pushback. So make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you're doing it just because you think you're going to have a better life, you may, but that's not necessarily the only reason you should do it. Think about what works best for you. I have lots of friends who, are in the radiology space, for example, and have great lives. They travel all over the world. They make a ton of money. They have tons of hobbies. So don't necessarily do it for the right reasons. Don't do it. You can do it to escape, but make sure there are positive reasons as well. And then the last one I'll say is, don't just jump into a master's program after your MBBS. A lot of people make it work for them, but I feel like it makes life a little more difficult for you. It makes a lot of sense to get a couple of years of work experience in. You don't have to do 4 or 5 years like I did. It can be 2 years as well. But it's so useful to break out of that bubble and see the world before doing a master's program and spending time and money. It's time. Don't think of it as just, I'm spending 2 years. You're also losing 2 years of your salary. So you're spending a lot of money outside of just what those fees are. It's a lot of money that's just wasted. If you're not making the most use of it. So there's lots of options degree wise. Like I said earlier, there's MPHs, there's informatics, there's all these digital health programs, MBAs, MHA, health, hospital administration and stuff. So there's so many options out there, and the reason they exist is because healthcare is a big space and is a booming space. But make sure you're choosing the right one for you. So The only way to do that is to get out there and explore, work for a couple of years, and then do whatever degree you want after that. The world is your oyster, but without that prior experience, you can't really make the most of an MBA or any other master's program by that logic. And then the last one I'll say, and this is probably more personal than professional, getting out of medicine, I feel like gave me a lot more opportunities and opened my mind up beyond just work wise. I think that I took risks and they worked out for me in the end. None of it was planned out. A lot of it was just being in the right place at the right time. And so it's very easy to go onto LinkedIn profiles, and I'm guilty of it as well, and saying, oh my God, this person's life is so perfect. He or she went from, this to this to this to this. They have all these big brands, they have these big schools, they have all these cool degrees, and you feel pretty bad about yourself and what you've done. But a lot of it is purely luck and being in the right place at the right time. So just take your risks, be calculated about it, be smart about it. I think that makes a big difference. One of the things that worked for me was traveling more and experiencing more outside of work. I bit the travel bug after getting out of MBBS. And it's really opened my mind up quite a bit. And I think that's translated into the professional world as well. Solo travel and things like that opens your mind up. You meet more people, have conversations, but it also makes you more open-minded at work and helps you, take risks on the professional side as well. And so, I mean, both professionally and personally, I think the move worked for me very well. But at the same time, there's lots of people I know, really, really close friends, who are very, very happy in medicine. So the bottom line is, do what's right for you. There's definitely no right answer. You can be successful in either walk of life.
We are almost done with the session. Thank you so much, Rohan sir, for taking out your time and guiding all of us. So I am sure that this will serve as guide for any aspirant who is looking to transition his career.